Hey guys, welcome back to the Blue Podcast. Today we've got another red and white show for you. I'm joined again by Nick. How are you doing today, mate?
Very well, thank you.
Good, that's what I like to hear. And I'm also joined today by Ben. First time on the red and white show. How are you feeling today, buddy?
I'm good, thanks.
Good again. Obviously, two very contrasting guests on here today in terms of the teams they support and how they're doing. Ben feeling definitely more optimistic about the start of the season than Nick and I are. I think the big news coming out of today immediately is that Steve Cooper's just been given a contract extension until the end of 2025. A bit of a surprise, even to Nick and myself, considering that there was talks of him being sacked after the 4-0 loss to Leicester. Just your first thoughts. We'll go with Ben because I know you're the outsider here, and I know you were pretty shocked about this one.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, you'll know more than me, so it might. I mean, obviously, you said it came a bit as a shock, but you might have some inkling as to why he's been given an extension now. But to me, like obviously, I saw Fabrizio Romano going, "Oh, there's discussions. You know, the board are talking about it. They might sack him, or but he could stay on." So not even thinking, not even in the picture was a contract extension. It was just like he might stay on, and then a few days later, contract extension. There you go. It doesn't quite, unless he was just really, because obviously he was involved in those conversations. He must have been like really convincing or something. Like he was just like, I know what I'm doing. Let me do it. Like I don't know. Like just give me a chance to do it. Like give me time to do it. But like from the outside, yeah, it's just a bit out of the blue, really. Like just sort of go from possible sacking to a contract extension. So yeah, very out of the blue.
Yeah, well, I think Nick, you'll be able to shed some more light on this and probably offer your own opinion as well. Because yeah, like Ben says, from the outside, it's definitely a shocker. But I think we maybe saw that he would probably still stay.
Well, in terms of sort of the last few days since Leicester, I honestly had not seen it coming at all. I thought we'd maybe have a new manager through the door, or one on its way at least. But since sort of summer, Cooper's been in talks of the contract. He flew out to Athens over the summer. Apparently, there's someone quite close to Marinakis who leaked some information about Cooper's potential new contract. So I think Cooper, it might have been Marinakis' son who Cooper had fallen out with. So the contract was put on hold. Obviously, the season starts. We don't start very well. So I thought maybe that had just been sort of put to one side, and because he'd only had a sort of half a year left on his current contract. So I thought maybe it'd probably quite a good opportunity just to get rid of him. Very low compensation, but he can get someone else through the door. So I was scrolling through Instagram today. Normally I get my information on Twitter. It shows how much I just wasn't anticipating the news at all. I was on Instagram and I saw on Forest's story that Cooper had signed a new contract, and it came as a complete surprise because that's probably the least most likely thing I think that was supposed to be happening. I think obviously Cooper being sacked was probably the most likely, and now he's been awarded a new contract, so it's a bit odd.
Are you happy about it? I mean, from my point of view, I think less change is better, especially considering what everyone's very familiar by now with the amount of signings we've made, and definitely the fact that we've struggled to sort of integrate all of them in one go. Do you not think it's better for the club that we don't have even more change and a brand new manager trying to implement his philosophy on all of the players?
Well, despite what I was shouting at the telly, I actually was filled with some sort of feel-good emotions when I saw that news, because just a bit of continuity, which we haven't had probably in my lifetime at Forest. Obviously, I mean, last time me and Ben were on the same podcast, I think it was on the eve of the start of the Premier League season, we said that it was probably going to be a slow start. The players had to gel. So I'm not sure it would make complete sense to then make even more changes and just add to the chaos rather than sort of settling down, giving Cooper time to implement his strategies and his formations. And he's still trying to find his best team. So give him a while longer, maybe an extra 2 years on top of the half a year he's already got was probably, I don't know, maybe a little bit over the top, but we'll see about that, I think.
Yeah, it could go one of two ways. I think either this could be a big boost to us to sort of kick on our season and we go and beat Villa on Monday at home and we go from there. Or it could go the opposite way and we tie in a manager to a 3-year contract who we know how reckless Marinakis is. he could still sack Cooper within the next month or two. Absolutely. So then we have to give him a big payoff and he goes on to a better club where he does extremely well. So it's definitely a risky move. I don't know. Well, none of us know right now whether it'll work out in the long run. But as Forest fans, we can only hope that it will turn out more positively.
I'd say two things in response to that. Firstly, I think it can only do good in the short term. What's good? A manager with sort of no commitment, there's big question marks over his head without a new contract. What's that? What good's that got to have with the Villa game? Like it's almost he's a dead man walking at that stage, isn't he? If he hasn't signed a new contract, and it's basically he's been given one more game to save his Forest career. So I think in short term, it's only good news. Forgotten the second thing I was going to say, but we'll just move on swiftly.
That's all right. Ben, do you have anything? I mean, how much of Forest have you watched at the start of this season? Because we've had a few games on TV, but obviously, unless you're watching Match of the Day, that sort of thing, you won't have seen too much of us. But what's been sort of your overall impression of the start of our season?
I mean, it's like I was saying on the previous podcast, which is with the amount of signings. I mean, obviously, I haven't watched a lot of Forest. Like I've watched this game, obviously, against City, but it was, it's just the amount of signings, and you can tell, like, it's not that he doesn't know what he's doing. You could just tell it's just impossible to gel that many players at once. I mean, it just isn't. You can't do it. Like, I mean, maybe you get a little bit of a look or something that's just clicks, I don't know. But when that amount of players, and I know obviously, you lost a lot of players and a lot of players on loan, so you had to sign a lot of players. But it does that still, means it'll be difficult.
Yeah.
Regardless of that. But obviously on Cooper signing a new contract, it is, although it's out of the blue, it is better in the short term to have that sort of stability with those amount of new players. In the long term, though, if the players still aren't responding to him, that's when the contract becomes a problem. Because if like by next season still not quite clicking, not quite gelling, then something about his message isn't getting through, and that's when the contract sort of. I mean, obviously, like you say, they're ruthless anyway, so they'll probably sack him anyway. But then, obviously, you're spending more money on the compensation. But it is in the long term, if they're still not quite clicking, quite gelling, then that's when it's sort of you're thinking maybe. But you do have to, like, that stability, and giving him a little bit more time is a good thing. But yeah.
I've just remembered my second point. On the new contract, Cooper's going to be on Premier League wages. So there's no good giving this new contract and then dismissing him after a month or two. So I think this is a sign of commitment maybe for Cooper to see out the season at least. And then we'll see how we go from there. But even then, there's no good sacking a manager when we're in the Championship who got us back up 2 seasons previous, but then dismissing him and paying him Premier League wages compensation and then getting in possibly a downgrade. So I think this is probably an indicator that maybe we'll see Cooper, even if we do get relegated, we'll see him in a Forest dugout in the Championship next season.
Yeah, and that's one thing I was speaking to somebody about this morning. But I genuinely believe that I'd rather get relegated with Steve Cooper than narrowly avoid relegation with somebody like Sean Dyche. And I know that's a really weird take because obviously we'd want to see Forest stay up at all costs. But I just think the managers we got linked with were Benitez and Sean Dyche, if I'm correct, Nick, and neither of those are appealing to me. I'd far rather have Steve Cooper than either. And I do firmly believe that if we got relegated, we'd come straight back up. And when we come up, we'd learn from our mistakes, sign less players, only sign players in the positions we need, and be far more successful second time round. That's my opinion on it.
Yeah. Well, in my lifetime, sorry, Ben. In my lifetime, the fans have had a proper connection with 2 managers, Lemouchi and Cooper. So if we'd have replaced him, I mean, I think a Dyche would have probably been acceptable for the fans. But if we'd replaced him with a Rafa Benitez, I think it'd have gone quite toxic quite quickly, and I think we'd have probably finished off a lot worse than we would have been with Cooper. So Yeah, I think it's probably a smart decision. We'll have to wait and see, I suppose.
Yeah, I think Dyche. I mean, if it's still, it depends how sort of desperate they are to stay in the Premier League this season. Because if it's still not quite clicking and gelling, in January, February, March, whatever, Dyche could still be an option. Because I mean, like you say, in terms of his style of football, not amazing, but he probably will get results, and could keep you up. And he's better than, well, I mean, in terms of obviously football and stuff. I don't know about if he's better than Benitez and stuff like that, but in terms of being an appealing to the fans, he will have that connection with the fans because he's down to earth, a bit more gritty.
So it would have made sense. So
yeah. So he could still be a possibility, I guess, further along the line as a sort of, unless he's been picked up already. But
insurance policy,
yeah,
if we need it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but yeah, no, it's yeah. I don't think Benitez would have been a good option at all. Not that he's not a good manager, but he needs. You saw what happened to Everton. Like he needs a bit more sort of security and stability behind him. And obviously, I mean, not saying like by the ruthlessness of your owners, that's not security and stability. So it's yeah, Daesh is definitely a better option there. But whether that happens further on the line or not, I guess we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, we can only hope for the best with this Cooper contract extension. But I'd like to touch on your team, Ben, Man City, because very conversely to us, you're having a terrific season, and it can be pretty much apportioned down to the big Norwegian up top, Erling Haaland. Nick and I discussed this at length last week with regards to fantasy football, and my decision, evidently a stupid one, to not include Erling Haaland in my team. Nick, I know you've absolutely rinsed me all week since last weekend's fixtures for that. So I'm hoping you've got it out your system by now. But Ben, how good has he been this season for you? And I know you were touching on it at the start of the podcast, but he's a player that, despite having Aguero, you've really missed for a very long time.
Yeah. No, it's yeah, he's just a natural goal scorer. That's basically it. It's just and like you're saying, yeah, we've not had that for, obviously we've not had a proper striker for a couple of seasons. I know we had Gabriel Jesus, but obviously he's doing it for Arsenal now, but he just wasn't clinical enough for some reason for us. I don't know why. And he was really good off the wing. But yeah, for seasons we've not had that number 9 who'll just stick the ball in the net. And it's not that we didn't do well without a striker, but it's just refreshing to see, someone who put the ball in it. Like when that his first goal against Copenhagen, it just got played into him, and first shot, bang, goal. Like we didn't have that for a few seasons. And obviously, like you said, we had Aguero, but at the end of his time, he was injured a lot of the time. So it was probably even 3 seasons without a striker. Although he did score when he did play, but when he did play was rare because of the injuries. But yeah, it's just they're just the like usually when without the striker we'd be passing the ball about and fanning around with it, but like with Haaland, it just bang, goal, and it's just refreshing to see. So yeah.
Yeah, and I know, Nick, you actually watched him in person stick a hat-trick against us at the Etihad. I mean, it's so crazy to see a player doing these numbers in the Premier League. I saw a stat that said he's got 3 hat-tricks now in 8 games, and that's the fastest by about 40 games to 3 hat-tricks in Premier League history. It's amazing to watch, really, isn't it? I mean, obviously, I don't necessarily root for him with regards to fantasy football, but as somebody that has him in your team, captain week in, week out, how great is it just to see him score repeatedly?
Well, it's just, if you stick him in the team, it's sort of like an inevitable, at least 1 or 2 goals. At the moment, it seems to be 2+ goals a game. So I think it's a bit of a no-brainer not to know his team. Rather stupidly, last week I didn't captain him, and he went on and scored a hat-trick. So I actually fell behind last week. But yeah, I've learnt my lessons now, and I'll be captaining every week. you can just see, like, other than your trademark like Messi goal, he can do everything else. He can score with his head. He can outmuscle players like this goal against Crystal Palace, where he just sort of took the ball in his stride and muscled other fairly physically imposing centre backs and pushed them away, and then slotted it in the bottom corner. His goal against Forest, I don't know if it goes under the radar, this goal, but I know Joe Worrell's not the quickest, but the ball was put into the box, and he's sort of, from the standstill position, he beat Joe Worrell over about 5 yards. Just a short little area to outrun Joe Worrell and also out-strengthen him as well. And that just shows the class of him. He's got the pace and the power just to blow anyone out of the water.
Yeah, and I know people had their reservations about him at the start of the season. Obviously, me included, given my fancy football decisions. But there's definitely some other pundits, and I mean, we've all seen that Soccer AM clip, haven't we? Now of I can't remember his name. Nick, you'll be able to help me out on this one. Him and Thogden, and they were disagreeing over it.
Oh yeah, Roy Jennings.
That's the one. Yeah. So obviously, people had their doubts, but he's almost done. He's exceeded what he was doing at Dortmund and Salzburg before that. He's actually, like, when people talk about Haaland versus Mbappe being the two best players in the world, and obviously Mbappe's doing it for PSG in a, let's be honest, not so great league. Haaland's rocked up to the Premier League and he's doing it against everybody. Like, obviously we've talked about there, Joe Worrell. Yeah, okay, so he's not the most accomplished or fastest of centre-backs, but he's not just doing it against Joe Worrell. He's doing it against all of the best defenders in the league. So, how can he keep going? I mean, we know he's a little bit injury prone, but what's to stop him from scoring 40 plus goals this season, doing that every season for the next 10 years?
Yeah. No, I mean, I think, obviously form goes up and down for all players, so there will be that for him as well. But if you can keep that consistency, I think the only, one of the only things is injuries, like you say. And that can be just him, physically himself, or even other players injuring him. Those are the only things that really, obviously with form, going up and down included, can really impact it. Obviously he's in a good moment at the moment. But yeah, and like you just like to think it'll keep it up, and obviously it helps, I guess, a little bit that he's not going to the World Cup, so he'll be fresh for second half of the season. But I guess you could say it the other way, that it might be a bit rustic, and the other players are carried on playing. But in terms of fitness, like when later in the season comes, he'll still be a bit fresher, you would think. So maybe, hopefully that would help as well. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you touched on there about him not going to the World Cup. I remember seeing something. It's like, poor Scott Carson, because he's going to be the one facing Haaland in training the entire time everyone else is away. You can just imagine Haaland and Scott Carson like becoming strangely best mates, and him absolutely peppering this poor 40-year-old Derby reject. It's I imagine it will be a good period for Haaland, especially like you mentioned with him being able to rest and recover. I saw something in the news the other day. We touched on this before the podcast started, but Erling Haaland earns £900,000 a week, apparently, with almost guaranteed bonuses in inverted commas. Nick, what's your thoughts on that? I mean, I know we're all a bit skeptical of the actual numbers, but go on.
Well, if there's one player worth 900 grand a week, I think it's Erling Haaland. It's the way football's going, isn't it? You see, there's players on similar to that, or not too much less, a lot less deserving of the money than Erling Haaland is. So City got the money, if they're prepared to spend it, then fair play to them, I suppose. Also, the transfer fee wasn't massive for a player of his calibre, so I suppose they can afford to spend that sort of money on his wages.
You say that, but that's the same justification we use for signing Jesse Lingard. So I know.
Slightly different, I think.
It's a bit less. It's much smaller in proportion, but it's definitely the same logic. Ben, you're probably more clued up to this. Is he actually on 900 grand a week?
I mean, I saw the headline but didn't read it, so I'm not 100% sure what the figures are and stuff. But I mean, it might. I can believe the sort of what you call the easy clauses, bonuses part, sort of like scoring goals, stuff like that. I can see that. I don't know whether it would be 900k a week, but because I know City made a point of him not earning more than Kevin De Bruyne. They made a point of it. They were like, obviously it's worth it to them, this amount of money, but they're not. They made a point. It's like, you're not going to earn more than Kevin De Bruyne, because then that just completely destroys the wage structure. So yeah, I mean, maybe they got around it with a few bonuses and stuff like that, but whether he's earning 900k or a bit less than that, which I doubt it. But it might be, somewhere in between those figures, that he's worth it to City. So that's the way they see it, I guess. That not having a striker for a few years is now worth it to them to pay this money for a striker. So
Yeah, well, while we're on the subject of Haaland and Man City, I think we all discussed at the beginning we'd love to do some predictions on this show from now on, but for all matches in the upcoming game week. And yeah, while we're on Man City, let's start with those. Man City versus Southampton at home. Hasenhüttl's under pressure in his job. City are obviously seemingly unstoppable at the moment, at home as well. It seems like there's only one outcome here. Nick and Ben, what are your score predictions?
2-0 City.
City have got a history. Southampton have got a history of leaking plenty of goals. They've lost.
Yeah. They always
9-0 Man City.
I was going to say that too. I'm going 9-0. I'm saying it now.
Madness. Like last season, I mean, obviously we got Haaland now. Last season, we drew with them at home. We drew with them away.
I know, but I watched both those games, and I remember Sterling missing a lot of chances.
Yeah. No, I remember. To be fair, I do remember. I watched a little bit of the first game, but the second game away from home, I watched with one of my mates, and I was like, "This is the prime example of why we need a striker." This game. Had so many chances and couldn't finish it, and then obviously they go up and with one attack and score, and then we grind out a draw basically, because we got the equaliser and couldn't get the winner, but just ground it out in the end. But yeah, it's still I'm a pessimistic City fan, so gotta stay true to my pessimism. So
yeah, honestly, mate. That's so 2-0. That's what you're sticking with.
Yeah.
Ben, there's pessimism, and then there's just
Unrealistic,
unrealistically
negative.
I think Nick and I are fairly optimistic Forest fans, but
yeah. Maybe 3-0, 4-0. I don't think it'll be 5-0. I really don't think it'll be. It's 9-0. Sorry, I don't think it'll be 9-0. Like,
nope.
Southampton aren't doing great, but they're not that bad at the moment, surely.
I don't know too much about Southampton, but I think they've got quite a young squad as well.
True.
We're like deer in headlights versus Erling Haaland, so I could easily see it being at least 6 or 7.
Yeah, I mean that Bella Kotchap, the centre back for Southampton, he's had a bright start to the season, but I can see him receiving an education against Haaland. I don't think he's cut out for that. Not yet, at least.
Yeah, no, yeah, we might score a few, but definitely not 9. Definitely 9. Not for. I can't see it. I mean, I don't know, but yeah, I can't see it being 9.
Right. Well, we'll see on Saturday, because I actually wouldn't put it past them at all. But we'll move on to a sort of, I guess, a nothing game. I mean, it's an early relegation decider, I guess, but Bournemouth versus Leicester. Bournemouth at home. Nick, what are your thoughts?
Bournemouth have been a little better than I thought they would start the season, but I think Leicester will have obviously had some confidence and giving us a bit of a battering, so I can see a 2-0 Leicester win.
Ben?
Yeah, I was going to go like a 2-1 Leicester win, something like that, 2-0, 2-1, something like that, because they got, like you say, they got a bit of confidence now, which they didn't have. Like they really needed that win. So,
Yeah, well, I'm going to go 2-1 Bournemouth. Obviously very different to both of you, but I think Leicester. I watched a game. Forest were terrible. Forest were truly terrible, completely defensively. So I don't think that's a reflection of Leicester doing well. I know what you're saying about confidence, but I think Bournemouth will be well up for it. And I can see them 2-1 in Leicester. Chelsea Wolves. Chelsea have had an interesting time under Graham Potter so far. A bit up and a bit down. Not thoroughly convincing at all. Ben, we'll start with you.
The Wolves have a manager?
They do not at the moment.
No.
Actually, so I was getting mixed up with Brighton.
Yeah, Chelsea, like, I don't know, 2-0, something like that. 2-0, 2-1, 2-0.
It's a game that Chelsea should win, but we've seen so far this season, Chelsea do blow a bit hot and cold, but I think it's still got to back Chelsea for a 1 or a 2-0.
I'm going to go 2-1 Chelsea with a Diego Costa last minute
consolation
goal.
Consolation goal. Yeah, he runs over to the manager, Graham Potter, gives it the big uns, knee slides full Adebayor style to the home fans. And, I'd love to see that actually.
2-1 down.
Yeah, 2-1 down. Consolation goal with knee sliding in front of the Chelsea fans. We'll go to Newcastle v Brentford now.
I don't know what Brentford are doing actually. Let me have a look.
They're doing okay at the moment. They drew last game against Bournemouth.
It could be a draw, that one. Like the Newcastle are liking a draw this season, aren't they? So, but they win last game. So, but
Fulham
they
4-1. I think it was.
Yeah, they beat Fulham last game.
It was 10 men, but yeah,
it could be a Newcastle win, but we'll go with the draw, like 1-2 or something like that.
Nick,
Newcastle traditionally are a pretty good side at home, so I think you have to back them. But Brentford are also a pretty good side themselves, so I'll go for a 2-1 Newcastle.
Yeah, decent shouts. I'm going to go 0-0. Again, different to both of you, but I just think Newcastle is so solid defensively at home, and I think Brentford will recognise that Newcastle don't have Isak available, although Callum Wilson's still very prolific. I just think they'll try and park the bus away from home and snatch a point. So I'm going to go 0-0. After that, the 5:30 kickoff, we have Brighton at home against Spurs. This is top of the table clash somehow. I mean, I say somehow. Both teams have been doing very well so far this season. Last game in the North London derby excluded. But yeah, Brighton v Spurs, Brighton at home. New manager De Zerbi. Ben, what's the score?
2-0 Tottenham. I know they've had a few off games, Tottenham, haven't they? But I think they've still got quality players. So yeah, I'll go with 2-0 Tottenham. Although Brighton, a decent team, can quite easily score a couple of goals. But yeah.
Nick,
Brighton have had a game before. Was it? Who did they play before? Was it Liverpool?
Liverpool 3-0. Yeah,
3-3. So the manager's had a decent start to his career at Brighton. But Spurs also, I think this is like a game that is tailor-made to Conte's style of football. Brighton are a nice footballing side. Tottenham will sit back and just hit them on the counter. I think they'll do them 2-1.
That's actually an interesting one. I was going to go 2-1 as well. I'd agree with you. Conte looks well up for this. And whilst Brighton have been very good this season, I think Conte will just find a way to win. I've got a follow-up question on that one. Does Jed Spence play? We know Emerson Royale is suspended for the next 3 matches. I believe Matt Doherty is still technically available, but Spurs spent 15 million to get Jed Spence to the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium this season. So I was just going to say White Hart Lane there. So does he start? Because he's only played 1 minute of Premier League football so far.
1 minute, which came at the City ground as well. So I don't know if that was sort of a sentimental touch from Conte, because I think he probably does prefer Doherty at the minute. So
yeah,
it'd be interesting.
Yeah, I do get I don't really know much about it, but from what I've seen, I do get the feeling, because he keeps on saying, people can say, why you're not playing these players, but it might be that they're not ready or something. So there's, something about him that he doesn't not doesn't think he's ready or doesn't quite like or something. Maybe, I don't know. But yeah.
So you both in agreement? No, Spence probably doesn't start.
I mean, he could pop a surprise, Conte, and just be like, "There you go, there's your chance. See how you do. See if you take it," sort of thing. Because the managers do that sometimes. But if he's playing it safe, he'll just go with Doherty probably.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's probably 70-30 that Spence starts on the bench.
Yeah, I think that's probably fair. I'd love to see him start because I think he's been underutilized, definitely. But yeah, I think you're right. I think Conte's definitely got the players he trusts, and he definitely does not trust Jed Spence at the moment. Sunday we have Crystal Palace v Leeds. One of those games that has potential to be perhaps even a 6 to 7 goal thriller. I mean, Palace and Leeds both attacking sides. Ben, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, probably go with a draw, like 2-2, 1-2, 2-2, something like that. Yeah, both decent sides, both attacking like you say. So yeah, 2-2, yeah.
Nick?
I saw a quote from Jesse Marsh saying that he was complaining about how teams just come and sit back against Leeds, and that he wants someone to come onto them and have almost a bit of a basketball match. So I think Crystal Palace definitely will do that at home. I think this could be a 5 or 6 goal thriller. I'll go for a 3-3.
Yeah, I was actually thinking something very similar. I'm going to go 3-2 Palace just because of the home advantage. I've just brought Zaha into my fantasy team, so I'm absolutely hoping for a hat-trick from him. I think that's the only way I get back into a decent position to win the league this season.
Bringing in Haaland, to be honest. But...
yeah, well, I've already missed the boat on that one. I think,
Yeah, well, you can still get a point from Haaland.
You're doing okay without Haaland. Imagine how you do with Haaland in your team.
I'd be top. If I wasn't a Forest fan and I wasn't so stubborn, I'd have had Haaland and I wouldn't have stuck with Brennan Johnson and Nico Williams for so long. I'd be top of the league.
I think that's been my issue as well. I've persevered with the Forest players, regardless of whether I think they're actually going to contribute that week or not.
Mate, I've watched Brennan Johnson play every single game and I've seen him do so poorly, and yet I've still kept him in my fantasy team just because I know he'll play.
Yeah.
It's honestly, you think it's crazy. Like, it's absolutely crazy that I keep doing this, but yeah, it is what it is. You got to back the Forest players, especially when they're in the Prem, because it may be the last season we're in the Prem for a while. After that, we have West Ham and Fulham. I think they're both sitting fairly comfortably now. I mean, West Ham just beat Wolves to move out of the relegation zone. Fulham obviously had a good start to the season. West Ham at home. Nick, we'll start with you. What's your thoughts?
Fulham obviously got battered last week. I know they were down to 10 men for most of the game, but I can see sort of the downfall of Fulham starting now. I think West Ham, steady side at home. Obviously, they've picked up results a bit since the start of the season, so see a 2-0 West Ham win.
Ben?
Yeah, could be a draw, but I think like recent results, West Ham have picked up, like you say, picked up form recently. So yeah, probably go like 2-0, 2-1 West Ham.
Yeah, not a bad shout. I'm gonna go 1-0 West Ham. Yeah, I can't. I think Nick, you're spot on there. I think this is the start of the Fulham decline. I think I'm confident that they will get. We'll touch on who's getting relegated later on, but I'm confident they will get relegated. I think this is where it begins. Following on from that, we've got the big one: Arsenal v Liverpool. Arsenal at home, obviously top of the league. Liverpool sitting in 9th, not had a great start to the season. What do we see happening here, Ben?
I mean, obviously Liverpool been in sort of up and down form, patchy form, but still got quality players. Arsenal in decent form, obviously lost to United. Probably go with a draw, like 1-1, something like that. I think they've had a couple of 1-1s recently in the past or something. I have it in my head that they've drew 1-1 recently as well, but not like last season, but a few seasons, like past few seasons. So yeah, probably go 1-0 for that one. Could be 2-0.
Nick, 1 or 2, okay.
I don't want to sit on the fence. I think it's probably most likely to be like a 1-1 draw, but I think if there's one team more likely to nick it than the others, I think it'd probably be Arsenal. I'll go for an Arsenal 2-1 win.
Okay, I'm going to disagree with both of you again, and I'm going to go for a Liverpool win. Arsenal haven't been challenged really. I mean, okay, with the exception of the North London derby, which they played well in, I'll give them that. But then you could argue Emerson getting sent off around the 60th minute wasn't obviously helpful to Spurs' cause. But the one team they played, they got shown up by Manchester United, and I think Liverpool really need to bounce back, and Klopp will have them right up for it because it's a massive game, and obviously they've got ambitions of finishing top 4 and doing well in the Champions League. I think Klopp will have them really up for it, and I think they'll nick it, and I think they'll go 2-1 Liverpool.
If you use the same sort of criteria, what big teams Liverpool came up against? They lost away at Man U as well.
True.
Who else they played? That could be. Is that the only?
But Nick, I just think it's different positions in the league. Arsenal are flying high, and Liverpool are doing badly. Let's be honest, they're doing really badly, and Liverpool haven't done it against smaller sides either. They've been shown up by teams like Fulham and Brighton, but I think this will be like Liverpool get up for the big games, with the exception of Man U. Liverpool tend to get up for the big games. I think Klopp will be issuing ultimatums to certain players that if they don't start performing, they're going to have to reevaluate their position in the first team. Probably Mo Salah will be included amongst those. But yeah, so I'm going to go 2-1 Liverpool.
Well, we're now at the point in the season where we've still got a big enough sample size to really give us indication of where the teams are going to be around the table. I'm not going to say Liverpool are going to stay mid-table forever, but I certainly do think it gives us an early indicator of maybe Arsenal could potentially finish above Liverpool.
I think this game will determine that.
Yeah,
I think you're right. I think this game will determine that. Next up, we have Everton Man U. Before I ask your predictions, does anyone know why this game is being played at 7 o'clock on a Sunday and not at 12:30 on a Saturday?
Not a clue. Not a clue.
Me neither. I was checking the fixtures earlier. But what's that? What's that?
I'm guessing it's something to just do with. Oh, sorry.
Oh,
my
yeah,
wife
it'll be.
was.
Oh, right. Okay. No, it'll be something to do with broadcasting, I imagine. But yeah, I was having a look at the fixtures prior to the podcast, and I saw that one. And I was like, "What on earth is going on? What, like 12:30 kickoff is pretty much staple now, and now we're doing it at 7 o'clock on a Sunday. Seems a bit ridiculous." But anyway, Everton at home against Man U. Everton have actually been surprisingly very solid defensively this season. Nick, do you think that will continue, or?
Everton seems to be the draw specialists at the minute. So at home, they're probably a difficult team to beat. Obviously, we nearly beat them, but I don't know if Man U have sort of the minerals to go to Goodison Park and get a win at the minute. So I can probably see an easy 1-1 or a 0-0.
Okay, Ben.
Well, they ground out a result yesterday, didn't they? Just about 3-2. So I might probably say United will ground out a win like, I don't know, 1-0, 2-0, something like that. 2-1. Yeah, so yeah.
I think that may be the pessimistic Man City fan inside.
It could be, but I think they could grind out a narrow win. But it could quite easily be a draw. But yeah. Narrow
yeah,
win.
Although grinding out a win against some random secrets, grinding out a win against Everton are two slightly different things. I will actually agree with you and say 2-1 Man U win.
Yeah. Like before the derby, they were in decent form, so
yeah, it'll be close enough, won't it? And finally, we've arrived at Nottingham Forest versus Aston Villa, Monday Night Football again. For some reason, I don't know who was organising the fixtures, but it's kind of annoying if you're a Forest fan going to the games. 8 o'clock, Forest v Villa. What's the score, Ben?
Could be a draw. I think maybe, but you might be a little bit of a bounce because of the new contract, maybe. But yeah, I mean, I'm not sure how Aston Villa have been doing recently, but I think that could go with like a 1-1 draw or something like that. If there is a team to win, then I would probably say Aston Villa, but yeah, it could quite easily be a draw, I think.
Yeah, and Nick, I'm very curious to hear what you're going to say about this.
Well, judging by the reaction on Twitter, they're all going to get behind Steve Cooper. I've seen Forza Garibaldi are maybe going to do a display for Steve Cooper. So I don't know if Villa have it in them to come to this ground and grab a win, or maybe even a result, even a draw. So I think Forest will beat them 2-1.
Well, if you're being optimistic, I'm going to have to be optimistic too. I'm going to go 3-0 Forest. Which, based on our start to the season, does seem very unrealistic. But like you were saying, Nick, go on, Ben.
Well, I mean, you could win, but I don't know if you'll absolutely smash him like that. But maybe you will. But like you could, if you you could win like 2-0, 2-1, but 3-0 like that's a bold. I mean, it'll probably happen now, but like it's a
it's a bold prediction, but I tell you what though, if we do beat them 3-0, Gerrard gets sacked on the spot. Villa have not had a good season so far, and Gerrard's been under a lot of pressure. And if he loses to this Forest side 3-0, he's getting sacked, I think.
Ignore all of that. It's the Matty-Cash derby. I've heard he's fit. He's going to return to the City ground for the first time since that awful result when we lost to Stoke. Hopefully he brings back some of that energy for Villa and we beat him 4-1.
I'd love that. I would love that. Do you think, I assume he'll get a great reception because he was a pretty good servant for us, wasn't he?
100%. He's probably up there, maybe besides sort of the team that got us promoted. I think Matty-Cash is probably the biggest fan favourite outside of the current players.
Yeah, I mean, I think Ben Osborne lost his favour a very long time ago with the Nottingham Forest fans, especially with all the stuff that happened with Sheffield United. So, Matty-Cash is probably the big fan favourite outside of the players that got us promoted. I'd agree with that.
Gerrard, I mean, he had that fallout with Mings, didn't he? So that sort of sorry.
Taking the captaincy off him and then
so something's happened there. Like there's something not quite right. With those two. So be interesting.
Yeah, it will be very interesting. But I know Nick and I will be watching and hoping for a Forest win. Nick, you going to be at the game? Nick, are you going to be at the game?
I assume so.
I'm guessing he can't hear us. His Wi-Fi may have gone. He's been a little on and off throughout the video, to be fair. But we'll probably wrap things up here on that note. Ben, thank you very much for joining us. You've been a great guest as usual. Ben and I will be returning next week for the Gradient Show because we're going to do a season review of She-Hulk. We know we've tailed off with the She-Hulk episodes. I think that's because we were kind of just repeating the same stuff every week. It's not been a great show, in all truth. Yeah. This latest episode's actually been fantastic.
It's the one episode that I've watched. I thought Daredevil was in it, and it was quite good.
It was very good, this last episode, and hopefully they'll do something similar for the finale.
Yeah, but it seems like, I mean, from what I'm gathering, it seems like the series has not been great except the last 2 episodes. But it's depending on what they do in the last episode. But it looks like the last 2 episodes will be like the only 2 decent episodes, and the rest of it is just like. But that's basically Daredevil. That's it.
It's Daredevil. Yeah, you're spot on. But anyway, so that's you got that to look forward to. We're going to do a season review for Andor when that finishes as well, and probably one for Rings of Power if you've been watching that, Ben.
Watching Andor, that's pretty good.
Andor's fantastic. Yeah. So we'll probably wrap things up here. If you did enjoy, make sure to please drop a like. Maybe drop your predictions below as well if you've made it this far in the video. And subscribe if you aren't already. We'll see you next week for another one of these. Perfect. All right.